name's Jay Hume. This is my 68 Chevelle. So I bought this back in 2009, so it's been about 15 years that I've owned it. Bought it off Craigslist for $2,500. I was looking for a 70 to a 72, anything in that range. When this one popped up, it was clean. It didn't need much bodywork from what I thought, and kind of fit the bill, so paid the cash money and had it delivered. So when I bought it, it was literally just a frame and body, no interior. Somebody had gone and spray canned primer all over the thing, so didn't even know what original color was. Had IROC wheels on it. I mean, it needed everything. There were spiders and snakes living under it. The thing sat in a yard for probably a year and a half, 2 years before I acquired it. So ended up being a Chevelle because my father-in-law has a 67. I always thought it was a cool car, driving that thing and just seeing the way it looked. It's just what stuck out to me. So it was always a Chevelle. Entertained a couple other cars, but really it was anything Chevelle related from a 68 to a 72. When I first bought it, the intent was to put it back to stock, really. I was going to do a black with white stripe, stock interior with a 350 combo that came with it. It wasn't in running condition, but it did have it to rebuild. So that was the initial intent. Put it all back to stock with some rally wheels on it. And then that quickly changed. Well, I wouldn't say quickly. Over time changed into what it is now. So it started with an LQ4 out of a salvage yard. It was LQ4 with a 4L80 transmission. That was the original build. Drove that thing around like that for probably almost 6 months before I knew I needed that 6-speed in there. To me, it was boring driving it with an automatic in there. So I went back into under the knife, took the 4L80 out, and then put the T56 in, which made it a whole new car. It really brightened it up and made it so much more fun to drive. Was going to throw an LSH supercharger on top of the LQ4 when we found out that it actually had a bent crank and had to rebuild the entire bottom end. So at that point, reached out to Scoggin Dickey, bought a short block, built short block for the boost that I knew I was going to put on it, and ended up putting the LSA supercharger on top of that LS3 short block. So we took it to get dynoed. It ended up putting down 695 horse and 650 to 655 torque, somewhere around there, which is a fun thing to have. It's definitely fun to drive. When we built the motor, we ended up putting stock heads on it, stock LS3 heads. We did the supercharger. I sent it out to Kong Performance. I had them do a race port on it to get as much power as I could out of it. Pulleyed it with a 245 upper, stock lower, Intercooler from AFCO, Moroso catch can, and really just a stock displacement bottom end. So I was happy with those numbers. So we ended up doing 1 7/8" Hedman headers, powder coated black, down to a 3-inch stainless steel X-pipe, and then out the sides, it's 3-inch all the way back with 2 Spin Tech mufflers. So it started out with a 10 bolt on the rear. When I had the naturally aspirated engine on there, it held up okay, but it started making some noises at the end, beating on it a little bit too much. So I went to Quick Performance, got a 9-inch out from those guys. We went with a 390 gear, and that thing just way better than that 10-inch, that 10 bolt that was in there. Way stronger, and I think it's going to handle all the power that I'm going to be putting at this thing. So I was running a hydro boost setup for the first year or two, and I just did not like the way it felt. It was kind of holding the brakes, and it was a real soft feeling. I didn't like it, so I actually took that off and then went back to just a regular basic setup with a quick ratio box and the power steering pump. That, and then running the cooling radiators. I ran through a couple different radiators. I tried a Griffin, I tried the cold case, and now I'm running a Wizard cooling radiator, and so far so good. I mean, the quality on that thing is just top notch. Came with the brushless motors for the fans, and that thing does not get over 190 degrees. That definitely cools it very well. So when I started building the suspension out, I went with SPC fully adjustable uppers with their tall ball joint, NASCAR style ball joint. When I was building it, it was 2012, 2013 when I was buying these parts, and SPC was like the name brand to go with if you're doing some type of autocross or anything like that. So that's who I went with. No problems so far. I mean, it's held up pretty well. I went with the same fully adjustable uppers and lowers in the back as well, but those are through Spohn suspension. That, and then Hellwig was the sway bars front and rear. For the brakes, I went with Bear. They're 13-inch 4-piston in the front, and then the 12-inch 2-piston in the rear. The reason I went with Bear, honestly, just doing their shop tours and checking out their facilities. They're right down the street from us. I always like to keep the local guys in business, but also it was just cool being able to go over there and pull parts right off their shelf. You didn't have to wait. You just go down there, pay for it, and they have everything you need right there other than just getting the custom colors. And that was the other thing too. They can match any kind of color. So I tried to match the red and the silver, knowing I was going with that brush wheel. And I just love the way they look on there, and they stop. It's phenomenal. So the wheels, they're 20 inch all the way around. They're 20 by 8.5 in the front, and then 20 by 10.5 on the rears. I went with Rushforth wheels only because Jason Rushforth, super knowledgeable on the specs. I know I wanted a certain look. I wanted that tuck look and as wide as I can go on these things. So when I reached out to him, he knew exactly what to spec these things out that wouldn't rub and still give you that aggressive look, which I think nailed it. I love the way those things look on there. Running a 255 on the front and a 295 on the back, and I don't know, for me, it nailed the stance that I was looking for. I went with that brushed look on it. I didn't want anything too flashy, right? So like chrome, I didn't want to do really any chrome on the car. And black was, at the time, like everybody was doing black. So we ended up doing that brushed face with a clear coat over it, which I think turned out great. So when I did the chassis originally, it was a stock Chevelle chassis, non-convertible, so it was never boxed or anything like that. It was an open C-channel frame. I sent it out, got it powder coated, built the car off that, and then once I started driving the thing aggressively, you could feel all the rolls and the body rolling on it. So I actually went out and bought Hellwig's boxing kit that came with all the plates to fully box it, and then my buddy Andy, he made all the supports going across, so all the lateral bars, we welded in a ton of bars on that thing, so it's super stiff, handles way better now. And then once we got all the welding done, instead of taking it all apart and powder coating it, we just ended up painting it. The color of the car is opulent blue. It's actually off of a 2012 Cadillac CTS-V. I was running around to the dealerships trying to find a basic color I can do. If I ever had to change it or add something or repaint something, I want it readily available and have it match. So yeah, opulent blue. It's got a nice little metallic flake to it. You don't really see it unless it's in the sun. As far as bodywork goes, everything's pretty much stock on the car except for one quarter. This driver's side quarter panel was replaced because it was pretty beat up. 2 patch panels in the front fenders. Everything else, and a new hood. I went with the steel 2-inch cowl hood, but it's other than that, it's all factory body panels. As far as the interior goes, there was nothing in there when I bought it. Literally just a front bucket or bench seat that came with the car. Pulled that out of it, and we're going back and forth with designs. A lot of people were doing the GTO seats. So I actually picked up a full set front and rear GTO seats out of an 05 from a salvage yard. Sat on those things for a while, tried to incorporate them. The back seats were just so big, it just wasn't going to work. So when I had the interior done, we reskinned the fronts, chopped the headliners off of them, or headrests off of them, relocated the button that comes on the side of that thing, put them on the back so it matches the stock look. And then the back seats are actually handmade to match the front seats, which I think came out great. He did an awesome job on those seats. Full red interior. Didn't know what color I was going to go with when we were doing it. With the blue, it was tough. We were going back and forth on all these different colors. And then I told him I loved the all red interior, but it just probably wouldn't work on a blue car. He ended up wrapping that dash. First time I saw it, I fell in love with it, and I told him everything, just all red everywhere. And I still love it. Every time I get in this car and feel that leather, it's an awesome feeling. Incorporated the stripe in it. Once we did the interior, he had a great idea about incorporating a red stripe on the outside to match. And so I pinstriped all around the silver, and then infilled the R on those Rushforth wheels to match, just to go along with the whole design. So for the stock parts, the bumpers, the side markers, headlight bezels, all the little trim pieces, the keys, the locks on the side, yeah, the key, the ignition, all those parts. It didn't have any of that when I bought the car. It literally was just all the sheet metal was on there, but none of the little stuff. So all that stuff I just got from OPGI. It was almost like every month putting that paycheck that I was making right to OPGI, just buying all these little stupid parts and just getting them all ready. So once it was painted, I could just slap those things on and make it how it looked. Just a couple things I would probably do different if I did it over again. One, is the chassis, right? You got all these guys making these killer chassis on this thing. Other than me modifying it, I wish I would have just had the money and put a chassis on this thing from day one. I think that would have it would have handled better, and it would have been less work doing it twice. The other thing is the engine management. Right now, it's still under a stock LS3 ECU. One thing I do want to do in the future, probably in the next year or so, is go to either a Holley Dominator or something like that with a standalone management, so I can tweak things, have a lot more control over them, and I think it'll just run better. This thing is a little bit outdated with the ECU on it. Other than that, it's anytime you get work done, you never know who you're putting your car's in the shop and who's working on this thing. So being around it now and knowing different people, I think it's going to go a lot quicker on the next one I do. I'll know what shops to take it to and who's got the great reputations in town, and that way you're not doing it twice for sure.